Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with daily technical update. It is the 1st of November. October has gone, so a lot of activity last night in both Europe and US. We're going to look at that. That ended the October month, and now we have the last 2 months of the year that we could also see quite a bit of action. Let's start with Hang Seng though. Hang Seng is here the past couple of days has tested support at 20,321. The key support here is 19,924. If it does close below that level, then it has closed this gap area. It tried here a couple of weeks ago, but it held out nicely. If it closed that gap, well, then we could see further selling pressure. Otherwise, it could bounce. So we are in this caught in this range, trading up to 20,953. That is a key resistance. And close above that, then we are in a bullish trend resuming. The S&P 500 in the US, massive sell-off, almost 2%. Went through the several retracement levels, support at 5,674. Close below that, well, then we could see further selling pressure. The RSI is still above the 40 threshold. I wouldn't be surprised if it dips below and then moves back above. But if it does close below, well, then we are negative sentiment and there could be further downside potential. So keep an eye on those two levels there, the 5,674 and the RSI 40. But we need to have reset this divergence here that has been indicating that the trend was stretched. We talked about it for quite some time, and that was an indication of a bullish trend exhaustion, at least on short term. But it can be reset if RSI closes below 40 threshold. Pre-market, well, more or less unchanged, only 0.15% higher. That's nothing. Nasdaq 100 that failed to test the all-time highs. Moved below 20,041 support. The key support here is 19,622. That could be tested. We have the 155 moving average coming up and give a little bit of support. So I think we could hold on for now. Could dip below, but I don't think we'll close below because then we're also suddenly in the cloud here. That could be, and that would be a little bit of a worry. However, it needs to close below the cloud for really being ugly. And we also have the 200 moving average coming up. But it seems like we need a bit of a correction after these moves here. And the single stocks, I'll talk about that in a separate post that I'll try to get out before the market opens. Or around that time where we can look at the Magnificent Seven, then we can look at what's going on there, because there have been some quite big moves after some earnings coming out. But there is potential down to 19,622. Whether we get there is debatable, at least maybe not before the weekend. On the Dow Jones index, also sell-off took it below the 41,831, but I think the 41,563 is even more key. As we can see here, RSI still in a positive sentiment. It didn't close below 40 threshold. So will it do that or not, and then bounce from these levels? That would be key. If we close below here and below 40, well, then it can become a little bit more ugly with downside potential to 41,000, maybe even 41,500. If we can get close above, back above 41,832, well, then we could try to close this little gap here, and the market could stay afloat at least going into next week. European markets got hit even harder. We had the EUROSTOXX 50, that party already started a couple of days ago, where the EUROSTOXX 50 got rejected at 5,000, went straight through 49.07 support. We can see how much key support it was. We are now below all moving averages, and we did test very close to it, a few cents from 4,803 support. The RSI is below 40 threshold. We are now in negative sentiment. That could be going into next week some more selling pressure, possibly down to the lower part of the cloud here, which is just around the 4,730. That's that one there, Klaus Band B. That's the lower part. And 4,732, where there's some strong support down here. It is not unlikely we'll get there because it looks very, very bad. You can see lower low, lower high. Not quite, yeah, it did record a lower low there, lower close, lower high, and now sell off, and we could see a push down there before there we get some little bit of a support. Unchanged pre-markets, so let's just see it very quickly where we are. See it down here. So here's the just pre-market DAX index. Yeah, touched 19,000, very close to at least 19,004, 19,005. If it breaks below there, we could see a push lower to 18,774. And the gap area here could be crucial also, 591, sorry, where we have the 100 moving average coming up. I'm not quite sure we'll get all the way down there, but you will see here again, and that is why we should always keep an eye on where we see these RSI divergence. You can watch how I use it in a separate video I have done where I talk about how to use RSI. It's on my YouTube channel under education. I posted a few weeks ago how I use it, and this is key. RSI divergence has indicated that the uptrend was stretched and we were in exhaustion mode, and we have this bearish candle here, and then sell off, and then also yesterday sell off where we're still holding out above 19,000. If we get 40 threshold being broken with the RSI closing below, well, and I think we need to have that to reset. So when we get below 40 threshold, the divergence we reset and we forget about it, then we are in a new situation. So I think going into next week, we could see further selling down to at least this area here, just above 18,700, 750 level. On the Amsterdam index, testing the 873 support, not the strongest one. So I think we will see it pushing lower going into next week, down to around 860 level, but we could push all the way down to around 850. We are in a negative sentiment on the RSI, so indicating lower levels. It needs to get back above 893 to at least get a chance to demolish this bearish picture. The CAC 40 also lower, and we talked about it if it took out 74.64 with the close, and it did that on Wednesday, and yesterday moved even lower and very close to testing the 7,300, which I think it will do maybe before the weekend or at least next week, and then I think it could also push lower. We are in negative sentiment on the RSI, indicating lower levels. The Swiss markets took out 11,875, and the negative sentiment, there's further downside potential. There's not really any strong support until the lows here around 11,420. I would say there's a little bit of support in this region around 11,630, but it looks very heavy at the moment on the Swiss market. However, if it can close back above 11,876, well, then it can get a little bit of breather, but I think that'll be short-lived, also thinking about the negative sentiment. On the FX market, euro-dollar hovering around 108.70-73, where we have a support resistance. It closed above yesterday, and I think we will see a move higher towards the 109.35, 109.50 area, where we have the 38.2 retracement, we have the 100 moving average, and then I think it's it. And I'm not quite sure that we will get the RSI back above 60. I think it will be rejected. However, if it starts taking out 108.50, then a downtrend could resume. So keep an eye on those levels. Euro sterling moved the rebound was a little bit stronger and faster than anticipated. I did expect it to get up to 84 and then being rejected, but it didn't. It went straight through above the resistance here at 84.35, and now we are a little bit below. But what happened here is that the RSI went into positive sentiment, indicating likely higher levels. So the overall medium-term bearish trend could be reversed. For now, at least, there's a very strong bounce that could take it higher, maybe even to 85 level. That will be interesting here the next few weeks. However, I think we will get a little bit of a setback, maybe down to test the 84 again before a next move higher. And what we can also look at is that if we just add if there could be potential up short term to the 84, 60, 65. But I think now we are very close to establish a real bullish trend. But I think we need a little bit of a solid base just to maybe down to 84 and then the next move higher, given that we're now in a bullish sentiment or positive sentiment on the RSI. The cable sterling dollar turned around, broke below the rising trend line and below the 129, spiked a little bit lower. I think we could see it pushing towards 128 here in the maybe before the weekend, but also into next week. We have the 200 moving average, so it's a fairly strong support. Not because it's over here, but because we also have 200 moving average. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it dipping down to 127. It really needs to take out this spike up there, 130.45, to at least have a go at 131. But it needs to close above 131 to establish a bullish trend. Dollar yen testing the 151.85 support. Could push lower if it takes it out. It dipped just a little bit below. It could test this rising trend line there. It's not the strongest one, but if we do see another push below 151.85, then I think we'll see a push down to support here, key support at 149.40. It needs to take out 154 for a push towards 155.50 area. We are in a bullish trend, but this looks like a top and reversal pattern, so expect a bit of a setback, I would say. At least keep an eye on if it takes out the lows from today at 151.78. Euro yen, bullish trend, positive sentiment, no divergence, indicating we could see higher highs, but 164 should be observed if we do break below that, and especially if we get a close below, then that could be in jeopardy. But there is potential up to 168. Aussie yen, fairly weak, testing the very short-term rising trend line there, but key support here at 99. If we break below that, and then we are looking at 98, and the break below that, well, then we are certainly in a bearish trend. Resistance here at 101.75, that is key. A move above that, well, then there's certainly potential higher, but for now it looks fairly weak and a little bit indecisive, I would say. Sterling yen rejected, it touched the 200 level and then it got rejected just above the resistance at 199.50. See, we were very close to, we got 1 or 2 pips from 200 and it couldn't do it. Massive sell-off there. Testing 196 key support. It dipped below a couple of times. If we have another go below, then I think we'll see a sell-off down to possibly a little bit lower. What I will do, I will adjust this, because then I'll show you what I use the Fibonacci levels for. So we just adjust this a little bit so we don't get it too cluttered. So we have a uptrend here, and then I'll add the Fibonacci and then say, okay, if we do see the 38.2 retracement is more or less at the same as where I placed this support here at 196. So if we take it out once more, then I think we will see it pushing down to 61.8 retracement at 193.53 level. Could push all the way down to the 786, where you can see also at the support I actually drew there, 191.79. 9, but I think it will stop here at least short term. So keep an eye on if it takes out 196 once again. Aussie dollar, well, lower, and I think it will push lower towards 65 here going into next week. Quite heavy negative sentiment on the RSI, no divergence, so expect lower levels on Aussie dollar. It really needs to get back above 66.50 to reverse the trend, and there's some strong overhead resistance. We have the 200 moving average. We also have the other one starting to turn around. So Aussie dollar looks fairly heavy at the moment. Dollar Canada quite stretched, almost touched the previous peak here at 139.47, just a few pips from. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually spike above and then collapse. And I added the Fibonacci just to give an indication where we could collapse to short-term 138.70, key support here at 138.10.12. If it breaks below that, well, then we can see a trend change. But you can also see all the moving averages pointing higher. We now have the 55 breaking above the 200. If it doesn't do it today, then we'll do it tomorrow. Let's see. It is just about to do it, just a little bit below. And looking at the weekly chart, we can see that it is in a bullish trend, but up here, very strong resistance indeed. So we are in for a correction. So I would expect a correction, maybe even after a spike higher. So keep your stops tight if you are long. Dollar Canada, Sterling Canada. Sterling Canada got rejected, and now I have removed the triangle-like pattern. It was busted after taking out the lower rising trend line there. We are back here. So I will say it is a little bit frustrating, this pair here. I would say it needs to take out 181.50 to the upside and 178.30 to the downside for any meaningful direction. Then we have strong support down here at 176.80. EURUSD breaking above its upper falling trend line, and I think we can remove this one and say, okay, that was not the case here. Key support 93.33, breaking above this falling trend line. I think we could see it push towards 95. If we can get the RSI above a 60 threshold, then there's potential up to that level there. We have the 100 moving average giving a little bit of resistance that could be a bit of a struggle to penetrate 95, but keep an eye on it. If it slides back and closes back below the falling trend line and back below the cloud, well, then it will basically just trading sideways. Dollar Swiss pushing higher. Oh, it's a little bit slow to update. Sorry about that. Pushing higher, tried to push higher again after a little bit of a correction lower, but it wasn't that much. And if it takes out 87, then we're looking at 87.50, possibly even higher towards 88.25. If it takes out the lows here from yesterday at 86.33, then expect a correction lower towards 85.30. If we get all the way down there, I'm not quite sure, but I think we'll see a larger correction at least. And the dollar index. The dollar index currently testing 103.80. It didn't close below, did it? No, it just closed one pip above, 1 cent above. So that is key support to look out for. If it bounces, then we could see a push towards 104.85. If it takes it out once again here, it dipped just below, well, then we could see a correction down to 102.74. Gold sell-off yesterday, but we are still in a bullish trend and it's still holding on. But if it moves back below 2700, 2708, then we see a correction to test the lower rising trend line there, possibly dipping to 2674, maybe even down to around 2643. I'm not quite sure about that, but the RSI divergence indicating trend exhaustion. So we are very close to, but still on the medium term, there's still potential to 2878. Let's see if we can get there. We are a bit stretched at the moment, I would say. Silver, a bigger correction. There's some support here at 32.25. If it moves back below that, well, then there could be a push down to around 31. However, there's no RSI divergence on the RSI, so I would keep it on. If it takes out 34, 55, the peak there, not this peak over here, but this one, then we'll see a push higher towards 35.50. On the other precious metals, we have platinum retraced 61.8 to 987 in a correction phase there. I think it will start pushing higher again. Still positive sentiment, no divergence on the RSI, but it's not unlikely it could dip all the way down to 969. So if it takes out the 986, well, then we could see a push down there. But still, it is in a positive sentiment, should move higher. Palladium also sell off, but we had this top and reversal pattern play, so we were warned. 61.8 retracement at 1098 could be tested where we have some support, and I think we'll see a bounce, positive sentiment on the RSI. And finally, copper, when we're talking metals, still moving sideways. We need to break out 445.70 or 429.35 for direction. On the oil market, WTI Crude bounced off the falling trend line here and is trying to, it has closed the gap, and now it will try to look at 72.34. Close above that, well, then we are certainly back in positive, at least short term, but the medium term picture is still bearish, very much bearish, but it's still holding on nicely. So it's still fighting for its bullish potential. The Brent also bounced, needs to get back above 76 levels to really go into a bullish trend, at least short term, trying to close this gap area here up to the 74, 75. If it does do that, well, then we are looking at 76 level. The medium term, well, we're still in a bearish trend, still negative sentiment on the RSI, so there is still a risk to the downside. Very quickly on the Dutch TTF gas that got hit by sell-off, we are still in a positive sentiment. There is still medium going into winter, so it's not next week or anything, but medium term we could see Dutch gas moving higher, and we are still in a positive sentiment despite this corrective sell-off here. And if we just add some support lines, we can see where there's a little bit of support around these levels, around 38, where it went down to. If it takes out 38, well, then suddenly we could have a different situation, but I think it will bounce from here. And Henry Hub gas, US Nat Gas here, well, also a bit of correction, still in this triangle-like pattern here on the medium term that should be observed for a potential breakout. US 10-year Treasury yields, well, a lot of movement on the spot, so to speak, a lot of jittering on the spot, spiking a little bit to almost the peak, and then spiked after spiking lower to the 38.2 retracement at 420. I think we will see a bit of a correction. So what I will do if I was trading this, I will say, okay, it really needs to take out EUR434, or it needs to take out to the downside, that little spike down. That is my range, 419. If it takes out 419, then I think we'll see 412, maybe even 406 being tested, which is the 786 retracement. If it takes out 434, well, then we are looking at 464, 465 level, these levels over here, possibly spiking up to that area here at 447. On the US 2-year, we actually got a bearish engulfing there, quite interestingly, but it's bounced off 406 support that was previously a resistance, so there is still upside potential. If it takes out 406, 405, well, then expect a correction lower to, below 4%, but for now it's still holding on and could bounce higher. On the EuroBund future, the EuroBund future is dancing around the 131.62 support area. It has actually broken it, but we could see a little bit of a bounce above 132. But the trend is down, and this double top pattern here potential is unfolding. It got right down to the 161.8 at 131.28, but they could take it could take it lower if it takes out the lows here from from yesterday, well, at 131.16, then we are looking at 130 level. And then I have thrown in the mix also, just at the end, the UK gilts, which is quite interesting also from a technical perspective. It took out 95.36, and if we're looking at the weekly chart, and let's have a look at the weekly chart here, we can see what's actually going on. That was a key support that it took out, and now we are looking at 91 to 90 levels on the UK gilts, very heavy, so much higher yields in UK should be expected. All right, that was a long one, but have a nice day, and talk to you again Monday.